now.
Why, hello there, old sport.
Hi, Bartello. What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, chapters 4 through 6, featuring your two favorite students.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So right into your question, Bartello. Let's open that bad boy up.
All right. Do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
You go for it, Amanda.
All right. Reread the paragraph in chapter 6, which begins, one autumn night, blah, 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 Gatsby and Daisy's first kiss. Nick narrates this event and says that Gatsby knew that after kissing Daisy, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. Explain what this means. Good luck. Even though that's probably not part of the question, but it's fine.
Do you want to start or should I go?
You go.
Okay. So I spent a nice long time looking at this because it was not one of those easy quotes to interpret for me.
Mm-hmm.
After staying with this a long time, I thought about like Gatsby's, you know how he's like really stuck in the past and like stuck on getting that past with Daisy back and all that good stuff. I connected that whole, where is that exact quote? Maybe easier just to look at the Bartello thing. Well, that his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. I took that as before he had met Daisy and like gotten together with her and kissed her, he like had like infinite possibilities for where his life would go and like where he would end up and what he would be able to think about and do in his future. And in that moment that he got with her, he just became not like fixated, but that became what he was centered around. And everything after that in his life was him trying to reclaim that moment and that time with Daisy. That's what I thought.
All right, so I agree with most of it. But what really stuck out to me about that, about the whole little passage on in chapter 6 was the whole never romp again. Because the word romp means to like kind of roughhouse and be childish. So it's like, it makes me think that, phone shut up, that it makes me think that Gatsby in his past was more of a kind of reckless wild child type. In my opinion, like, because it's like, I remember, it's in the beginning of chapter 6, I worked it down. Where is it? During his backstory part when he was talking about, but yeah, it's like, he knew women early, and since they spoiled him, he became contemptuous of him because of young virgins. They were all ignorant. It's like, he kind of had like a more like when he thought about women, he was like, kind of ish. But it's like he met Daisy, and it's like basically it was kind of like a switch. He's like, wow, this is a nice girl. I'm never gonna go run around again. I want to be with this woman, kind of thing. That's what I thought about when I read that passage. Oh, I didn't say the page. It was on page 98, by the way. Like at the bottom of it. 1, 2, the third paragraph.
There we go. I found it. It's all good.
But yeah, let me just keep talking so we don't have awkward silence.
Sorry, I'm just rereading the quote.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Real quick. Because
and it's like, and it also mentions that he had, because they were hysterical about things, and in his overwhelming self-absorption, he took for granted. So it's like, his overwhelming self-absorption, it's like, it says Gatsby at one point was very self-absorbed. And I kind of feel like he may still be like that a little bit.
So you felt like with the quote thing, being with Daisy made him like a better person and like made him more mature and grown up and all that good stuff?
Yeah, like I feel like him meeting Daisy was like maybe like a form of coming of age moment for him.
It's interesting. That's
like a late coming of age, but like, honey.
That's interesting because that's like almost the opposite of how I took it. Not the coming of age part, but that you took it as like a good way versus I took it as like a negative. Like that was like his high point and everything else was down from there.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I understand that it could be like Daisy was his high point and then he just kind of plummeted, like considering how he is now. He's literally doing all these things just to try to get her attention. But I also feel like that high point also just made him mature in a sense. Like, I mean, he became a decorated war veteran, I guess, because like he does have all the medals and stuff. But yeah. So speaking of that, I just want to mention how fake his backstory sounds. Okay, like.
Oh, Amanda, what do you mean? There was a convenient, troubled rich man with a boat, and he needed help, and it's just what do you mean?
The James Gatz part makes sense. Him changing his name makes sense. Like,
I think it makes even more sense with such a little change, and he seems like the kind of man who would change his name by 4 letters, be like, that's a new identity.
Yeah, it's like it just like him just meeting that old what was his name? Dan Cody on his yacht. It just felt way too convenient for him to come into fortune that way. Like, I feel like there's more to it, especially since we were exposed to other fake backstories in the past about Gatsby. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it matches more of the stories people made up about him. And you know how you said there's more to it? I feel like there's less to it. I feel like it's some really boring story, and he just wants to make it sound cool because it goes with his whole persona of being like this like larger than life guy. But in reality, he might have just gotten the money from some really boring way. It's just like, oh.
Okay, well, I think that little chapter 6 thing was discussed enough since it goes quicker with 2 people.
Woo! Yes, I've noticed this.
All right. So, do you want to do your questions first or my questions first? Because I don't care.
What was that? That wasn't a sentence.
You can do it.
I have a question. Let me find the page for it though, because I wrote 92. Let's see if I have a post-it note there. Oh, the thing with Daisy and the shirts. She was like going in Gatsby's house, and he was like throwing all the fancy shirts, and she was catching up, and she started crying. They're such beautiful shirts, she sobbed, her voice muffled in the thick folds. It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before. How did you interpret that? And like how it related to Daisy.
Okay, so I interpreted it as like one of those like just emotional buildups of over time, because when they first reconciled, I guess is a good word for it, not really reconciled, but like met up again when they were at Nick's home. It's like it was really tense, and I feel like the tension was like building up, and then it's like they're finally like more of a relaxed position kind of thing, like with Gatsby just showing off his wealth and his shirts. Like, why shirts? Anyway, so it's like I feel like it was one of those moments where it's like you just kind of break and you cry over the stupidest thing. But
wait, do you think she was like happy crying or sad crying?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Because I have a theory about that.
Please, come on, meta theories. Let's go.
Oh, okay, not meta. No. Back out of that corner. We'll do that later. No, I thought because she breaks when she's like never seen such beautiful shirts. So I think we can agree she's not really thinking about the shirts, right? We're good with that. Okay, yeah. I think because she saw. Okay, obviously she kind of likes dudes with money. And I'm not saying she only married Tom for his money, but
I ain't saying she a gold digger.
I'm just saying she obviously, gets with them rich boys. And and obviously she didn't get with Gatsby because she got with Tom. So I feel like in seeing all of this like representation of wealth from Gatsby, she's thinking about like the life she could have had with Gatsby and the money she could have had with Gatsby. And she's looking at all of that, and she knows that she won't be able to have that, even if she does get with him in whatever fashion. It won't be the same. And she knows that won't happen, and it makes her sad. And she cries. That's the best I got, because I've looked at this quote for a nice long time.
Because it's like, just throughout that chapter, what was it, chapter 5 this occurred in? It's like, I just kept getting mixed signals from both Gatsby and Daisy about all of it, because it's like, at the beginning, Gatsby is like really relatable, and it's like he's all nervous, he's doing like his little nervous tics. Like, this actually leads into one of my questions, because in chapter 5 we see Gatsby being relatable. For example, on page 84, he was pale and there were dark signs of sleeplessness in his eye, beneath his eyes. So it's like he didn't sleep the night before, he was all nervous about it. And then it's like he was being like kind of fakish with his word, well, not fakish, but like, well, let me just read the little bit that I took off of it. Because on page 84 again, at the end of one of his sentences when he was talking to Nick, he added hollowly, there we go, old sport. And it's like, it's like usually it's like he refers to people with old sport like in a friendly way, but since he sounded hollow, it's like that's like another sign of nervousness. And then when he tries to make an excuse to leave right before Daisy arrives, kind of be like, and it's too late for tea, she's not going to show up, so he tries to leave. And it's like, I liked that relatableness that like was brought into Gatsby's character. But then it was thrown out the window in chapter 6 because we were introduced to obsessive behavior. Because it's like he's kind of doting on Daisy a little bit during the party, and it's like, and he was like visibly upset when he kind of realized she didn't like it. Because let's see, page 109. His eyes were bright and tired. She didn't like it, he said immediately. Of course she did. She didn't like it, he insisted. She didn't have a good time. Like he was silent, and he's like, I feel far away from her, and it's hard to make her understand. And it's like, he's feeling like, I feel obsessive vibes from him. And it's like, and it kind of extends into him wanting to repeat the past, saying, I'm going to fix everything just the way it was before, he said, nodding determinedly. She'll see, on page 110. And I want to discuss the change in Gatsby a little bit.
Oh, I was going to say, because I don't know exactly what your question was in there. It kind of snowballed, but when I was thinking about the thing between Gatsby and Daisy and why their like feelings with each other, why that tone in that whole thing was so weird and like awkward feeling between them, I felt like it was because Gatsby has this mentality of like wanting to regain the past and get rid of the present, versus Daisy is able to acknowledge that she can't get the past back, and even if she wants something in the present, she has to live with all of her past decisions. And there's like that weird clash that he wants what happened before and she wants like the present and the future, and those mentalities can't really mesh together, so they just kind of grate, and it's awkward.
Because it's like, my main part of it was he went from kind of a more of a mysterious character, but it's like we could still kind of like him a lot, to he started showing obsessive behavior in 6, and I'm just like, do you think there are any signals that we could have picked up on in earlier chapters of him having maybe just that tiny bit of a obsessive behavior disorder thing?
I mean, I think that's because of how Nick wrote the story, right? Because this is like a book that Nick was writing, and I think he made it
unreliable narrator.
Oh yeah, well that too. I think it's made to fit how Nick learned about him, right? Like Nick didn't know his motivations and stuff. Like we can assume that Gatsby was motivated by Daisy and all of that same stuff from beginning to where we are now, right? But it's just that the earlier chapters, we didn't know his motivations. Like we didn't know him well enough to understand that. So if you don't know all of that background about him, it just kind of seems like he's having parties and doing all of this stuff just because he wants to and he just feels like it. But then when you like learn more about him and break him down and see him in all these interactions with Daisy, you see that he's probably a normal guy, and also there's the whole Daisy thing behind it.
If I look shocked, it's because you went full robot for like 5 seconds and I was concerned, but it's fine.
Cool.
I heard what you said. That's all that matters.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say repeat that.
But no, it's like I get what you're saying, and you know what? That actually helped a lot with like me trying to interpret the relationship between Gatsby and Daisy. So thank you.
No problem.
Oh, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, we go ahead. Speaking of all the past stuff, I want to note that quote on page. That's not it. Maybe I'll find it someday, Bartello. I have flags everywhere.
This is why you write things down, Lauren.
I did write them down. Page 110. See, I wrote it down. I just gotta get to it.
By the way, Bartello, did you know that there's a total of 44 old sports in the novel?
Yes,
because we got bored. We looked that up.
It's great. Old sport. It's wonderful. Nick says to Gatsby, "You can't repeat the past." Gatsby says, "Can't repeat the past?" He cried incredulously. "Why, of course you can." And just that quote really sticks out to me, because
Mhm.
that's an interesting mentality from Gatsby. How do you feel that that quote reflects Gatsby's mentality at that point?
So from this point, we know that Gatsby is kind of obsessive about the past, but we also don't really know the exact story of his past. We only know for sure the concrete part of his past is that him and Daisy had a thing before he went out to the war. And I feel like after kind of like interpreting different things about Gatsby's character, like, because it's like I know like a psychology thing is if somebody is like showing like a lot of exuberance in something and like throwing massive parties and crap just for the hell of it, and then like not really participating much, like those are like kind of signs of like kind of being not in the best state of mind. And it's like I feel like he feels lonely because he can't get Daisy's attention in the way that he wants to, and then when he finally does, he just becomes like so obsessed with the thought of Daisy again, to where he becomes obsessed with the thought of them in the past. He wants back what they had, so he's willing to try to do anything he can to bring the past back, even though in most cases you can't really bring the past back no matter what you do.
Well, I know that's a really good. I hadn't considered that all of those behaviors. I was just thinking that they were literally just for Daisy. I hadn't thought that they were like a symptom of all of his obsessive and that bad mind state he was in.
I'm fine.
Oh no, Amanda, don't die. You choked
Wrong
now.
pipe.
You can't repeat the past. Fix it.
Yeah, shut up.
Oh, I was gonna say, you said something about him wanting to get Daisy back. Do you think he's actually like directly into Daisy, or do you think he's more into like less literally Daisy and like what Daisy represents and all of that good stuff?
I think he's into the idea of Daisy. So the vein of what she represented in his past, a happy time.
Like before the war and all that.
Yeah,
all
like
those good times.
Like I feel like he associates Daisy with a happy time in his life. So he just wants the idea of that back. So Daisy being in front of him, being that manifestation of what his happiness was, can be kind of taunting to a person. So it's like, I just feel like he's a sad man who wants to be happy again, and he'll probably do whatever he can to do that. But hey, at least he doesn't. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying you said that he wanted the past before he was in the war and stuff. Do you think that's related to like the theme of wealth and having a bunch of wealth isn't good? Because that was before Gatsby got the wealth, if I remember correctly. You think that's connected to the theme of like having money doesn't necessarily make you happy?
Yeah,
I'm just thinking this now.
Yeah, I would think that too, because it's like I researched Fitzgerald a bit, and I found out that he has a lot of mixed feelings about the American dream. And he had found it both promising and vulgar in a sense, like promising as you could build yourself up and become rich and all that happy stuff, but it's also vulgar because it can lead into being unhappy or being a not so great person, kind of like Gatsby is kind of spiraling down into. So it's like, I believe this is like kind of along the vein of how the American dream could be detrimental to somebody, so how wealth can be detrimental to somebody.
I definitely see that, and I was gonna say I think about Tom when you said that too, because he's like this dude who like got all of this money, and then it's like now he's got like a boatload of money, and he's obviously not happy. Like even though he's having this affair and stuff, he wasn't really in this part of the book, but in the last part of the book, he wasn't a happy man. Like he seemed kind of depressed to me a little bit, and it feels like even though he has. I mean, I'm not saying I like him, but I'm also saying he didn't feel like he was doing so good. And I felt like, there's this expectation that once you have all this money, you're going to be happy. But I felt like because he was all the way at the top, and he had reached the, quintessential American dream, he had nothing else to achieve towards. So he was no longer happy. So I feel like if Fitzgerald was trying to say that it could be both good and bad, he could be saying that it was good.
If you heard that pause, that was my phone.
Yes, yes.
That was my phone.
Yes, yes. Don't die. Anyway, I think the American Dream can be shown as both good and bad in this, because it can be good in like the all of the hard work to build up to getting the American Dream, but bad in that once you reach it, you're probably not going to be happy still. You're probably going to be happier on the way up than you will be once you're up there.
Okay, so one more little question to pose about that.
Yeah.
Do you think the novel would still be the same if Fitzgerald's beliefs about the American Dream were black and white? So either he completely didn't believe in the American Dream or he completely believed in the American Dream and the American Dream would always make you happy kind of thing. Do you think Gatsby, like as a novel, so The Great Gatsby, do you think this would even exist if he believed that the American Dream was a happy thing?
I mean, I think the book, to me, it leans more towards the it's not a happy thing, but I think if it was solely unhappy, it wouldn't have. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know. When I think of books that are like solely not into the American Dream, like I think of you read Of Mice and Men, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like how that's like the American Dream was bad in that because like Lenny wanted the American Dream and George wanted that, and then it whoops at the end is like the shot, and then none of it ended up good, and they're wanting the American Dream, they got crushed by society and all that good stuff. So I feel like if the American Dream was solely bad, then these people, I guess they wouldn't have been able to reach it at all. I guess because if you're saying the American Dream as a whole is bad, then you're saying like the way like building up to it is bad, and then having it is bad. So I feel like I don't know what I'm saying anymore. My train of thought.
That makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. I
that thought. I don't know how to.
Because it's like, I believe if okay, so let's say black is the bad side, white is the bad side, yin yang kind of crap. So say the American Dream was completely good, then The Great Gatsby would probably have a much happier tone to it, and would probably be like, "Oh, the American Dream's great. Get rich, have money, and then you'll finally be happy." And then if it were on the negative side of it, then it would be how you explained, how it's like even if you built up all this wealth, you'll never be happy. You're never going to have your dreams, kind of thing. So maybe The Great Gatsby leans more on the side of even if you even if you have wealth, you're not going to be happy.
Well, I think if it was solely negative towards the American Dream, there like if the American Dream as a bad was whole and that was just a statement, like an unarguable statement, there'd be no reason to want to achieve it to begin with, right? Because if you're like, I want to achieve this thing that only leads to bad, if it was only viewed as bad, there'd be no reason for people to want to strive for it to begin with. So I think he had to view something as like honorable in that striving for this dream, if even the dream ends up being like not good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we beat this horse dead. Lauren, give me a question.
Oh boy, let's go. Did that question. We did that one. One of my questions, I don't know if this is too similar to the one we just did, but I was going to talk about war and what Fitzgerald thought about that, because this book was after World War I, but before World War II. And it kind of seemed like the only happy point in Gatsby's life was before the war. And I was wondering how you thought Fitzgerald's opinion of war impacted the book in any way, or if it did at all.
So what's Fitzgerald's opinion on war? Because I didn't get a chance to look that up.
I don't know that.
Oh, well, you know what? Let's just assume.
I mean, I assume he didn't like it. Most people probably didn't.
And I don't feel like taking 2 minutes to Google it right now, so because it's not like we're in a class discussion where someone can look it up while someone else says something, so whatever, it's fine. So it's like, if we're going to assume that Fitzgerald thought war was a bad thing, then we can view it as if Gatsby's life was happy before the war and then the war happened, then that meant that the war just made everything spiral downward. And it's like, we know that in history. Oh, excuse me. Because where it's okay, because like we know, like right after the war, there was the Roaring '20s, like there was a boom in the economy, and then after 1929, Fitzgerald was still alive, and it's like after 1929, everyone went bloop. So it's like, even like when was the book written again?
1925.
1925. So it's like, yeah, it was before the Great Depression, but I feel like this could like relate to that because we're seeing war as something that makes people's lives go into a downward spiral. And it's like, while things seem good on the outside, everything's just going to go to crap later. And we know that from the Great Depression. So.
Yeah, when I read this, like when I was reading this, I kind of assumed that it was written after the Depression because I got like a vibe of it like as if something bad was coming, like as if all of this good that was happening was building up to something bad. So it surprised me that it was written before the Depression.
Meta theory. Fitzgerald predicted the Depression. Anyway. But yeah, it's like I just feel like Fitzgerald's negative views on war, if we're assuming he has negative views on war, which he probably did. Come on, he was a 1920s novelist.
I looked it up for 5 seconds, and all I could find was that he fought in the war.
Well, maybe well, yeah, I know he fought in the war.
Maybe his life was like that, in that maybe it was good before the war, and then after that, it was not as happy.
Well, I mean, I researched his wife, Zelda, and apparently, according to Ernest Hemingway, Zelda just like killed his writing output. So, and then he was also infatuated with another woman, which he constantly wrote letters to. I forget her name. It started with a G. But it's like, I kind of feel like we could project Fitzgerald into Gatsby in that sense. Because, well, not really Gatsby, but it's like...
I was going to say, I remember before we said he was more like Nick than Gatsby. Are you changing that?
Maybe. Because it's like, well, maybe he's just projecting into Gatsby in like this moment. Because it's like before the war.
I was gonna say, I don't know about that because he gets shot at the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like connect Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I know. Well, just hear me out.
Yeah.
So it's like before the war, he was happy, and it's like, or maybe no, this would be more of a Tom kind of thing.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you saying that Gatsby's mentality in the book is like Fitzgerald's? And maybe that Fitzgerald knew that that mentality probably wasn't a good thing.
Yes, that, please, thank you. Oh my god, I couldn't word it.
And that he had like a nostalgia for those pre-World War I times. But at the same time, he knew that having that nostalgia was in the end going to be a bad thing. Versus Gatsby didn't know that fact. Or he didn't care.
But yeah, I just want to like bring it up. Like the person that he was infatuated with for a while, a lot of his female characters are actually based off of her. So I found out Daisy was based off her. So like, and then he also called the same woman a B word when she asked which character in The Great Gatsby she was based off of. So yeah, we know that things kind of went downhill after the war for Fitzgerald.
Hey Amanda, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Do you want me to do a synthesis question or an analysis question?
I mean, whichever you want. We went through my questions already, so.
All right. Well, we talked about the past enough, so I'm just going to skip that one. So let's go to page 78 real quick.
Ooh.
And on page 78, there's a song that comes up called I'm pretty sure it's pronounced the Sheik of Araby because it's like based off Arab stuff. And it says, I'm the Sheik of Araby, your love belongs to me. At night when you're asleep, into your tent I'll creep. So I got curious and I looked up the rest of the lyrics online. And it says, the stars that shine above will light our way to love. You'll rule this land with me. And my question about it was, why do you think this song would come up? Because it comes up right before Jordan mentions to Nick, hey, Gatsby wants to have you arrange this thing so he can meet up with Daisy again. So I want to know why particularly this song came up. I feel like it was for irony.
Yeah, I was going to say that it seems like it's about, like, not, like, rising to power, but, like, I don't know how to word what the song is about. Help me, please.
Okay. Well, if we read through the lyrics again real quick, it has that this we'll light our way to love, you'll rule this land with me. So I feel like that's more of a coming together kind of thing and finally being one.
Consummating a relationship. That's the wording I was looking for. I feel like it's saying that because it's right before the part where the whole Gatsby meeting Daisy thing, where that would start if you count Gatsby trying to set that up. as the beginning of that. So this song comes in directly before that happens, so it kind of leaves this idea of like, oh, maybe Gatsby and Daisy will end up together and that whole thing will actually work out the way that he wants it to.
Time. Yep, that's time. Any last quick thoughts before we stop? Besides the fact that Tom is an ass.
So yeah, irony. I felt like it was making everything sound good, even though it wasn't going to be. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like there's definitely the irony part, especially since Fitzgerald left out the second half of the song. But yeah, okay. I think we did okay.
Ooh, good job, old sport.
Bye, old sport.